Welcome back to the Dynasty Arsenal podcast. This is our third episode of our season-long Dynasty podcast. I am Sammy Stacks. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Tags. Tags, how was your Week 2 Sunday?
It was a weird one for me. As a guy who has a lot of Drake London shares and Garrett Wilson shares, a lot of teams kind of tanked a little bit. So, but it's fine, you know. It's just a weird week in fantasy football, and we'll be back on the horse next week.
Yeah, those will happen, right? You get 30 points from Justin Fields, and then you get 3.5. It's not always gonna be that. It's not always gonna average out to the middle, right?
You know who will never let you down though is Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, no, of course
QB2 overall in fantasy.
Yeah, as everybody predicted,
as we all knew it. Yeah. So how was your flock weekend?
Unfortunately, we are now 1-1. Took an L. It was so close. Obviously, I have Fields as my starting quarterback, and he laid an absolute egg. I came up against Amon-Ra, who put up just under 40, 3 touchdowns. It was ridiculous. Like, if Amon-Ra scored 2 touchdowns and 120 yards, I would have won.
If fine.
It would have been fine.
Output.
Yeah, but the 40 bomb killed me. It came down to last night. I had Nico and Mike Evans and Tampa's kicker. Tampa's kicker hasn't missed a field goal between 30 and 39 yards since 2022.
He was like, hold my beer.
And he doinked it. Like, unbelievable. He makes that kick, I win the matchup.
Didn't he doink a few last week too?
He missed, I don't know if he doinked, but he missed a 40-yarder, and he missed an extra point last week.
Yeah.
So he's gone. I already dropped him, and I picked up the Indianapolis kicker, who hasn't missed yet, and they are scoring on every drive. So hopefully that's a little better.
So that's the end of our kickers buy and sell.
That's the end.
Sell
Tampa's kicker, buy. Yeah, exactly. Sell Tampa's kicker, buy Indianapolis's kicker. Nobody else has even made a kicker move. Yeah. But yeah, I needed more from Mike Evans and Nico. Nico had that first play, like that huge touchdown, insane
that
catch.
Touchdown was awesome.
And then that drive, I don't know if you watched the game, the drive when he goes down at the 2 on that slant.
Yep.
And then they run it with Chubb. They get nothing on first down. And then second and third down and fourth down, it's like just Nico targets, all 3 missed him. So frustrating.
Man, Chubb had some juice, though.
Yeah, when he gets into space, he can move. He had that one screen where I was like,
dang,
is that Nick Chubb? What is going on?
Whose knee did he steal? Because he's looking pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah, so 1-1 going into week 3. Fields is a problem. I did get Goff off of waivers for that Monday night game.
I think regardless 45 50 point bomb he dropped.
Yeah, regardless of if Fields is good to go with the concussion, I might just play Goff ahead of him because of I don't love the Tampa matchup for Fields, and the Lions-Ravens game is the highest over-under of the week.
Yeah.
So hopefully that could be a shootout, and I can get a ton of points there.
It seems like we've already seen a ceiling game from Goff, and that seems to be like the perk of starting Justin Fields. So you kind of get the ceiling built in with the fact that he can just drop a 5 touchdown game, and it seems a little bit safer of an option coming off a concussion for Fields.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm genuinely not worried about Fields long term. I think that there was an overreaction both ways after week 1 and week 2.
Yeah.
It's like after week 1, okay, he's a top 10 locked in your lineup guy, and after week 2, he's like a QB2. He should be on waivers. I think he's going to give you those boom bust games, and it was really bad against the Bills. But
has that not been the career of Justin Fields?
That's just what he is, and he still had 50 yards, which I've been talking about the 50 rushing yard floor, and he gave it 49 rushing yards. So I feel 2% vindicated.
It's a very low bar if you're 2% vindicated.
Yeah. The other big story of the weekend, something that I need to talk to you about, is Caleb Johnson.
Do we have
before we get into everything that we have planned?
Talk about it.
Before we get into everything that we have planned today, Caleb Johnson. This is such a strange situation. Obviously, he's a late first, early second rookie pick. Through the spring and summer, it looks like it's an open backfield. It looks like there's a ton of opportunity there. And then the first game, 1 carry. Kenneth Gainwell is more trusted than he is, and then he just has an absolute blunder on special teams. It looks like he could be headed for the practice squad. What on earth do you do with Caleb Johnson in Dynasty right now?
Really anything you can do but hold him. Like, you're not going to, what would you sell him for? What would anyone realistically be looking to buy him for? Like a third? It's clear that the Steelers, they trust Jaylen Warren and they trust Kenneth Gainwell. And we heard all offseason, as soon as they signed Kenneth Gainwell, how hyped the Steelers were. And maybe we should have listened to that a bit more and taken that more into account. All the talk out of preseason camp about how much they love Kenneth Gainwell, how much they trust him. And Gainwell's been a very quality RB2 backup his entire career, backing up at the Eagles for the most of his career. Mm-hmm. And I think I just don't think they trust Caleb at all. I think we kind of have to look at this season as this might be just, we're punting on this season as Caleb Johnson owners, which means he might be a buy for a rebuild team. If you're a rebuild team and you can get him for a late second, I think it's worth it just to take that risk if the Caleb Johnson owner is panicking and kind of wanting out. Mm-hmm. But man, that special teams blunder, he was already kind of in the doghouse, and now he's just going to be fighting to even get on the field at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a new rule with what happened was it lands in the field of play. Caleb it takes a crazy bounce, it goes over his head, and he's thinking, okay, it's going through the back of the end zone, it's going to be a touchback. But if it lands in the field of play before the end zone, and then it's downed in the end zone by the kicking team, it's a touchdown. You got to know the rules. Like, I mean, it's like he could just be complete doghouse from this point forward, right? Like,
which is kind of not to doubt Tomlin, but like, it's kind of wild that Caleb was even put in that situation as a rookie. Because there's already a little bit of, we've seen receivers in the past where you only need 1 foot down to consider it a catch in college. And sometimes rookie receivers take a little while to adjust to the fact that they need to get 2 feet down for it to be a catch. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting that like he was even put in that situation. You would think a guy like Calvin Austin would make more sense as a kickoff returner. It just seems a little strange, and I'm hoping Tomlin also views it that way and is like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have put a rookie back there, especially with so many new rule changes coming from the college game to the NFL game. I think there's a little bit of a learning period to kind of get up to speed to how the NFL operates. So I just thought it was interesting that he was even in that situation to begin with, but Tomlin's obviously knows more about football than I do. So
yeah, I mean, and we saw with it was Roman Wilson last year. I mean, he was a 3rd round pick and he was hurt at the beginning of the year. And then when he got healthy, they were just like, we don't have time to get this guy up to speed.
Yeah.
It seems like they're very much like the Steelers are really big on trust and being able to, have full confidence that the guys they're putting out there are going to do what they want them to do. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Like, it could just be a redshirt year. And if you're a rebuilding team, you could treat him like he's injured and buy him and hope that come next season he ends up having a role.
Yeah. If I'm a rebuild team, I'm waiting though, because I doubt Caleb recovers and is productive in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I think
you almost want to let it get worse.
You want to let the Caleb Johnson owners kind of just simmer in this crap pot that they're in and wait for them to panic a little bit more. And especially if they're a contending team that has Caleb, which a lot of the people picking in that late first round that would scoop up Caleb would be contenders. I would let him just be ass for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you swoop in and be like, hey, can I swap out Mike Evans for Caleb Johnson?
Once it creeps in that he's sort of like he could be an absolute nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's there yet, right? Like it's 2 weeks into his career, but once it creeps in a little more after a few weeks, I think that you could definitely get something done there. So
rough
today,
situation.
absolutely.
Also, can we talk real quick about the rookie running backs in general? It's been
It's a
slow.
conversation.
Like, Genty owners are not happy. I've got probably 65% shares of Marion Hampton and Travion
That's gone
Henderson.
terribly.
And I'm like I'm starting to feel a little toasty in this room, starting to sweat a little bit. So it's been an interesting year where normally running backs are the safest to get year one production. And so far it's been so slow for what was an incredibly stacked running back class.
Yeah, I saw this morning. So that I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if it was a wheel route or what, but the Ramondre catch up the sideline.
Yeah.
The one-hander that he took. That was a play that was supposed to be for Travion. And what happened is Vrabel was on some talk show this morning, or it might have been yesterday, Monday or Tuesday, and he said that all week they'd run it in practice with Travion, and then he had those 2 brutal penalties at the beginning of the game, and it took away his opportunity. And it just shows the same thing. Like, these coaches need to trust who they're throwing out there, and right now Vrabel just, in that game, he trusted Ramondre more. And we saw Hampton. Who knows if it was Herbert or his fault on Monday night, that fumble at the end there.
Yeah.
But he fumbles, and then it's Najee in the game for the rest of it. So,
and also you saw earlier in the game with the Chargers that they trusted Najee more than Hampton even before that.
Yeah, on a few different plays, absolutely. And I think that Genty is really the only one who is staying out on the field no matter what. But that offense just isn't really moving the ball. And, I didn't catch much of the Patriots game in week 1, but last night that Chargers defense was just absolutely suffocating them. And Genty couldn't really get anything going at all on the ground.
Yeah, Genty would have contact within, as soon as he touched the ball, he'd be contacted. And there's a few plays that stuck out to me where it's like, okay, this is what we expected from Genty, where he just like bulldozes a guy and then runs for an extra 7 to 8 yards. But I think he's finding it so much harder in the NFL to be a power back, because linebackers that he would truck in college, like, you can't truck linebackers in the NFL like that. So he just hasn't been as productive, and his offensive line has been rough with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Like, they just haven't given him much running room. And then Hampton is just, he doesn't even pass the eye test for me. Like, you watch him on the field and it's like, it feels like he's struggling with vision and figuring out how his blocks are developing. And he kind of just like runs into a wall every time he touches the ball. So I have concerns. I'm obviously not selling. And Henderson, I'm fine on Henderson. Watching both Patriots games, shout out, go Pats. Watching both Patriots games, it seems like they want to ease him in and not put too much on his plate. It kind of feels like they're going like it's like a 7-course meal. So this game he's just getting a side salad. Next game he might get a appetizer. Then who knows, next week he might only have a little martini. It just seems like they're kind of easing him in and kind of working him in spurts rather than like giving him actual workload. And dude, I want him on the field more. The amount of times Ramondre just like whiffs on a pass block, I'm just like, Henderson wouldn't have done that. Get the guy on the field. Yeah. So I have no concerns for Genty. He'll be fine, especially if the offensive line figures it out. I think his style of game is, he almost needs to try to be shiftier. I feel like he's in college. He's like, I'm just going to bulldoze everybody. And there are times I wish he would bounce it outside, try to juke the first guy and then maybe bulldoze the second guy. But instead he tries to bulldoze the first contact he gets. And I think he's leaving yards on the table that way. So Genty's fine. Hampton, I'm stressing about. And then Henderson, I'm fine with also. I think he's just getting caught up to the speed of the game.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm worrying at all about any of them, really. I think it's all about expectation, right? And I think that a lot of people came into the year looking at those guys. Maybe it's the sleeper projections playing into people's heads, but a lot of people came into the year thinking that, okay, these are guys that I'm going to be able to throw into my lineup on a weekly basis and rely on to put points up. And it's just going to be a slower progression than that.
You know what I had to do in one of my contending teams this morning?
What'd you do?
I took Hampton out of my flex and putting Quentin Johnson. What a year.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
But
that's
the
thing,
a year for football.
That's the thing. Like it's just gonna be a slower process getting these guys sped up to the point where you can throw them into your lineup weekly. And I think that's fine. I'm not panicking on Hampton or Travion. I think if the owner is, and if you get a whiff of that, if you can buy them for any less than what they were valued at the day before the season started, I would absolutely make that move.
Yeah, I think it's all about knowing the state of your league and seeing if there are any managers that are kind of panicking on their production. Yeah. Especially if there's a contending team who has one of those players who starts off slow because that player is kind of not up to the production they need. Mm-hmm. That's kind of your moment to swoop in and be like, hey, let me send you this productive veteran and swap him out for Hampton if you're kind of a younger rebuilding team.
Exactly. And all it takes is just sending out a little feeler message, right? A little DM that just says, hey, how do you feel about what are your feelings on Hampton right now?
Yeah.
Obviously he hasn't looked great, whatever. Just get a gauge for, there's no downside to gathering more information. That's what we'll always say.
Yeah. Just being active in the league and communicating.
Absolutely. And so the first thing that we want to get to today is, this goes back to our in-season management that we talked about a lot last week. And one thing that we see as being very important in your in-season management of your dynasty teams is looking at matchups, specifically defenses to target and defenses that you want to be aware of their prowess, I should say. So a team like Green Bay, right? They are looking incredible. The defense is playing awesome. They've shut down 2 of the top 5 offenses in the league, borderline, right? With the Lions and the Commanders of last year. That's a defense, sorry, where if you see a bad game from one of your players against that guy, it's okay not to panic, right?
Yeah, like we talked about last week, those create selling and buying windows. So if you're trying to buy a player, wait until they play the Packers, because the Packers made the Lions look awful last week. They held them to 13 points. The Lions had just put up like 50 points against the Bears. And they made the Commanders look bad this week. So if you're trying to buy Bill, this might be your best time, even though the Eckler injury kind of boosted his stock. So it might be kind of a wash anyways. But yeah, so I was looking at the Packers playoff schedule for fantasy football. They're playing the Bears, Broncos, and Ravens. So Ravens are going to be in the championship weekend. Derrick Henry, that stresses me out as a Derrick Henry owner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Micah Parsons opens up that defensive line for the Packers so much. Like Devontae Wyatt and Rashawn Gary are just feasting on these 1v1 matchups. And if they try to move anyone to help out with Gary or Devontae Wyatt, then Micah Parsons has like did you see the spin move that Parsons put on the offensive lineman? The running back came over to help him out wide and try to push Parsons wide. Parsons spins to the inside, gets past both the offensive lineman and the running back, and then just hits Jordan Love. And
Jerry Jones is an absolute clown. I would be like, if I was a Cowboys fan, I don't know what I would do. I would be so mad all the time.
Cowboys fans can mute the next like 10 minutes of this podcast. It's probably better for your mental well-being. Mm-hmm. But if I'm a Henry owner, like that's going to be tough. Assuming they hold up, which I think the Packers are legit. I think the 2-week sample is enough to kind of see how legit that offense is with Parsons in. And if I'm a Henry owner and seeing that, like, I mean, Henry only went for like 23 yards this past week against the Browns, who are also a surprisingly good defense.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Who knew Myles Garrett was so good? But if I have Henry and see him, okay, they're against the Packers championship weekend, I have a hard time trusting. You can't sit Henry.
No.
But also you're like, you don't feel good going into that matchup.
Definitely not. And I think that here's the thing. I don't think it's crazy in, getting towards your trade deadline. And we're going to have an episode mid-season where once we have a bigger sample size of these defenses, of a bunch of buys and sells purely based on playoff matchups.
Yeah.
But I think that when you get closer to the trade deadline, if you can make a move where you flip Derrick Henry for another one of those in like super elite older running backs, like a CMC or a Saquon, something like that, where even if you have to add a little bit on top just to get a very similar production and avoid that Packers matchup, it's absolutely a viable thing to do. And for right now, obviously you're not selling Henry in week 3 because of this, but it's just something to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah. And that can transition into our next segment, which is targeting defenses. Because there's a guy that is playing the Dolphins in the NFL playoffs that I think you could swap Henry for and get a plus on. And I wouldn't mind it. So we're talking targeting the Dolphins. The Dolphins made Ramondre Stevenson look like Saquon Barkley out there. I've been a Patriots fan for like 27 years now, and I have never seen Ramondre do the stuff he did in this past game. He had wide open lanes to run through with a struggling offensive line who were terrible last week. Wide open lanes to run through. He's making over the shoulder fly route catches. Looks incredibly fast and speedy on a screenplay. And I'm watching all this happen and I'm like, God, I'm targeting the Dolphins. I need to target the Dolphins defense. Dolphins defense started the year giving up 10 scoring drives on 10 possessions on defense. So
it's bad.
I'm like, I think at this point they've established themselves as a defense that I'm targeting. And I was looking at their playoff schedule. So they're playing the Steelers, Bengals, and Bucks. And I think every one of those running backs I am trying to buy if I'm a contender, just to kind of get ahead of it and start kind of taking advantage of that matchup. Bucky Irving is playing against the Dolphins championship week. Dude, Bucky's going to have like 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. I bet Rachaad White is going to go for 100 yards, especially Rachaad White looked good yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
That offensive line with Bucky against the Dolphins defense, oof, that's gonna win people championships. So, what I was leading to with the Henry comment is, if it's later in the year, I'm looking at a playoff schedule, and Jaylen Warren is still keeping up the production he has. There's a world where I think you could send Henry for Jaylen Warren plus a second, or Jaylen Warren plus something, and you're going to get the same production profile when he's going up against the Dolphins as Henry would going up against anybody.
Yeah. I think that a contender might send Jaylen Warren in a late first for Derrick Henry if If he puts up, like, through the first 10, 11 weeks, if Henry puts up the same numbers that he did last year, like creeping up on 20 PPR points per game, I think that he would absolutely be worth a first in Jaylen Warren.
Because it looks sexier looking at your lineup and you see Derrick Henry in there, not seeing Jaylen Warren's name. Like, there's name value that you can kind of take advantage of. But ultimately, your goal is to score points in fantasy football. And Jaylen Warren against the Dolphins or Derrick Henry against the Packers, I'm betting money that Warren scores more than Derrick Henry,
if not very close to it. Right.
Yeah.
And
so the fact that you can get a plus on top of that to build more assets into your kind of personal, Dynasty Pod. I couldn't.
He's a pro.
I'm a natural.
There you go.
I think those are the moves that really help teams be able to maneuver around and keep their production level high while also building on assets to kind of stockpile.
Absolutely. It's without a doubt something to keep in mind. And as we said, we'll have a full episode of all those trade targets coming to you mid-season. What I sort of looked at was the first 2 weeks, who are some players who I believe their matchups in these first 2 weeks have painted a potentially flawed picture of their outlook long term. So the first guy I want to talk about is Travis Etienne. I believe that there's a sell window here that may close very quickly, and his value may not ever reach the height that it is at right now. Everybody's back in. He's looking like himself again, all this stuff. He's played the Panthers and the Bengals, who last year were two of the bottom three defenses in the league to target for all positions. Now, they traded Tank Bigsby, right? They're comfortable with Etienne as the lead back right now. But with those two matchups being as easy as they were, combined with the fact that Bashal Tutin on Sunday scored a touchdown, looked really, really good. I think we talked in the first pod that we did preseason about this Jags backfield and how it was very ambiguous and what's that going to look like. And I said, is it not the most obvious thing in the world that Bashal Tutin is Bucky Irving and Travis Etienne is Rachaad White? And now I think that while those player comps aren't perfect, Liam Cohen drafted Bashal Tutin. Liam Cohen did not draft Travis Etienne. Liam Cohen did not choose to have Travis Etienne on his team. Now, the rookie running backs, they take a little while to get going. I think this is my personal opinion, that it is more likely than not that Bashal Tutin takes over this backfield sometime during the season after Travis Etienne goes up against a few more difficult matchups. I believe he's playing the Texans this week. That is a difficult defense to run on. Bucky Irving looked great on Monday night. Travis Etienne is not as good as Bucky Irving is. And so
the offensive line is as good as the Bucs offensive line.
Not even close. And so I think that there is a sell window based on these first two matchups that have been very easy for Travis Etienne to get the most out of him now before he faces some tougher defenses or before Bashal Tutin's role continues to grow.
Yeah, I think we'll see Tutin's role continue to grow as the season goes. There's nothing more sure every single year than second half rookie running backs. We see it every single year. The rookies, the first 8 weeks of the season, not a whole lot, kind of just sprinkled into the offense. And then by the second half, they start to kind of really pick up steam and carve out a meaningful workload for themselves. And I think Tutin definitely fits the profile of the running back that Cohen really has had success with in the past. I'm still in on Travis Etienne. I think he's just such a valuable target. He's in a contract year. I think I'm holding Etienne because I think he's still going to be productive, and I'm really intrigued to see where he goes in a contract year. If he goes to like the Chiefs next year, then I'm all on board with Etienne. So I still like Etienne's upside. if I'm a rebuilding team, I'm definitely trading him because I don't want those points on my team. But if I'm a contender, I think I'm holding on ETN personally and kind of seeing. I mean, he was a former first round pick, obviously has the connection with Lawrence ever since college. And he has like the receiving profile that Cohen really likes from his running backs. So I think I'm holding, but I guess I am concerned that Tune cuts into more of his workload. But we could also see this as like a Kamara and Ingram situation where you have two running backs that are both productive and have a useful role. Because so far that running game looks phenomenal and the passing game has been rough. So I could see this being a situation where both Tootin and ETN have meaningful roles, especially with how good both of them are in the passing game.
Yeah. I think that obviously there's a wide range of outcomes here. I guess, I don't think he's very good. And I think that the running game has looked very good because of the matchups, as I mentioned. And
Panthers and Bengals.
it's quite the start.
It's quite the start. That's a nice, juicy matchup, which I'm concerned for Lawrence, how he hasn't just feasted on those matchups.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Thomas hasn't been great. Travis Hunter has been a very slow start.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that offense progresses. Did you have any players that you wanted to key in on based on matchups that we've seen so far? It was just Ramondre, right?
It was just Ramondre for me.
Ramondre as a big sell,
and
because
anyone
of what he did
facing that Dolphins defense, as soon as they play the Dolphins made Ramondre look like primetime Barkley. So I'm kind of keying in on that. Anyone who's playing as the Dolphins. Who are they playing this week?
The Dolphins are playing the Bills on Thursday.
Oh God, James Cook is going to go for like.
James Cook is going to continue to be the RB1. It is going to be insane. I have so Travis Etienne is a sell for me based on those specifically because of those first two matchups and how easy they've been. I have a opposite take on a player who I think, because of two tough matchups, is somebody that you can buy very low right now, and that's Mike Evans. So Mike Evans has faced the Atlanta Falcons and the Houston Texans. In week 1, I think that we have come accustomed to the Atlanta Falcons not having a pass rush for so long, to the point where like it's almost like it's very difficult to believe that they might have one now, right? They draft Jalen Walker and they trade a first-round pick next year to move up into the first round again to take James Pierce Jr. And those guys look great. They torched the Vikings on Monday night. They did really well against the Bucks, or no, on Sunday night, sorry. They did really well against the Bucks in week 1. And the Falcons have a very good secondary as well, right? AJ Terrell back there, Jesse Bates. They drafted Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame as another safety. He's been really good so far. And then against Houston on Monday night this week, Mike Evans is just being shadowed by Derek Stingley the entire game. And the Texans have a really good pass rush. They have a really good secondary. And Mike Evans has had trouble getting open against these guys. But so will any receiver in the league. And so Mike Evans has had back-to-back games with just over 10 points. Egbuka looks incredible. He's getting all the touchdowns. I think that there could be a team in your league that's sitting there with Mike Evans going, is this guy washed? Do I need to get whatever I can for him right now? And I think that there's, based on these first two matchups being very difficult, I think there is a very promising buy window here. I got 2 texts. I have Mike Evans in the Flock League. Obviously, that's a redraft league. But I got 2 messages this morning about people trying to trade for Mike Evans.
I don't think Mike Evans, you hold on, though. He's got a matchup.
Oh, you should absolutely hold.
Well, he's got a matchup against... I'm saying like hold on trading for him, because he has a matchup against Sauce Gardner this week. He's got a matchup against Philly right after that. And then a matchup against Seattle, which Seattle defense has looked pretty great. So I think he's got a rough next 3 weeks. And if you can't get him for a good price now, wait a week or two and you'll be able to get him for a great price. And dude, a small little tangent on the Falcons defense. They're on my list of defenses that like I have my eyes on and keeping note of as a defense to avoid. Because dude, James Pierce looks completely worth the 2 first-round picks they gave up to get him. And that defense like looks scary. that whole team as a whole looks great from the offensive side, the defensive side. But the Falcons defense is kind of a defense I'm not wanting. I'm not excited for my team to go up against them. Unlike in the past where I'm like, yes, everyone's going to go off if they're playing the Falcons. So they're a team that I'm weary of going against just because their defense has looked really great. But yeah, I think that Bucs schedule the next 3 weeks is brutal for defense. So if you don't buy him this week, I think you can hold off a little bit, let him stink up the next 2 to 3 weeks against Sauce Gardner, against Philadelphia, against the Seahawks. And then there should be a really good buying window in between those 3 weeks to get him for like a late second if a team's panicking on him.
Yeah.
If he puts up AJ Brown numbers and goes for 6-7 points every week the next 3 weeks, then that contending team's probably not going to be doing great if they aren't getting the production they want from Evans. And I think his starting price could be around a late second. And if I'm a contender, you gotta buy him for that.
Absolutely. And you talked earlier about
also
when you're talking about the Dolphins, they play the Bucs in week 17.
Guess what? Guess who the opponents are that the Buccaneers are playing in week 16 and 17, the primetime weeks of the playoffs?
Well, I know that it's the Dolphins in week 17.
It's the Panthers and Dolphins.
Oh my!
Which is beautiful. So
that is it. So yeah, we're going to be, I'm sure, on that playoff buy and sell video, we are going to be talking all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm think with Rashad White, get over
everybody.
Here. I don't even care what you look like in the past.
And with Mike Evans over the next 3 weeks, I think if you have him, this is just a message of relax. Don't overreact to a poor game again. don't overreact to a poor game against the Jets or against the Eagles or against whoever, right? Because these teams are still treating him like he is the Bucs wide receiver 1, because he is. Egbuka is great. Egbuka is also a rookie. Mike Evans is a 13-year veteran, and he still has it. Like, he hasn't lost a step. And I would absolutely be fine trying to get him this week, because I do think that he can do well against Sauce Gardner. That's not one that I'm worried about as much, because the defense as a whole isn't that good.
And typically Sauce doesn't shadow. He usually stays on his side of the field. Is there any concern with Godwin coming back and how that split is going to look like once Godwin is back in the lineup?
I'm not worried as much, because Sterling Shepard had like 6 targets last night. And Ryan Miller had a touchdown. Like, it's not like the targets are incredibly consolidated right now to Evans and Egbuka. So I would not be worried when Godwin gets out there. He's coming back from his second huge leg injury.
Also, is Baker a bye? He's had not the best past 2 weeks. And I feel I've seen the Bucs offense kind of leaning on that running game more. But once Godwin's back in the lineup, I feel like they run it back like they did last year. And they go 3 wide with Evans, Godwin, Egbuka. And then it's kind of like defenses have to pick their poison. Like, who do you want to shut down?
And they're getting Tristan Wirfs.
And then Baker will just pivot to the other options.
They're getting the left tackle back, Tristan Wirfs, as well. He's been out for the first 2 weeks. I think that the Bucs could definitely, we just talked about, the Bucs are going to be huge come playoff time. So I don't know if Baker's a buy. I think he's a fine low-end QB1, high-end QB2 weekly.
I'm curious what the current sentiment is on Baker. look at
I
trade
think
database.
people were really high on him this offseason because of the big year he had. He was a huge regression candidate because he's probably not going to throw 40 touchdowns again.
Not with that attitude, he won't.
But no, exactly. But I think that coming to talking about quarterbacks, another thing we wanted to talk about, continuing with the in-season roster management, with all the quarterback injuries that we saw this weekend, there's a big talking point about backup quarterbacks and how to manage those situations in your dynasty leagues. I know that Tags, you had a bit of a spiel on Jake Browning that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so this point is mostly for rebuilding teams. And I think I see so many leagues where the rebuilding team just checks out for the year. Like, yeah, the team's going to be rough. You're punting this year. You're expected to lose every matchup. But you're missing out on value that is to be had that's just sitting on the table for you if you check out midseason as a rebuild team. And the gold pot that has happened this week is the perfect time for you to get back and be active as a rebuild team, because we've seen this exact situation happen before. And this whole section is about how to manipulate your fab budget into acquiring picks, which is kind of midseason strategy for rebuild teams. And it's just an opportunity to build value on what you already have. And as a rebuild team, I'm purely viewing the waiver wire as what players can I add that I can ship off for picks. So if I'm viewing, say right now, like the news that just released about Jaden Daniels having a knee sprain. If he doesn't start this week, Mariota is going to be in. Mariota has rushing upsides, and we already have seen him last year step in that offense and be productive. And what I did last year in the same situation, Daniels was out for a week. Mariota came in, played really solid. I picked up Mariota for literally $0 fab and then traded him for a 3rd-round pick to the Daniels owner. So you can acquire free draft picks that way because these players have value, especially to contending teams who need the insurance on their team. And the biggest situation happened with this same player we're about to talk about that happened literally last year. So we have the data, we have the history of what this exact situation, what you can get out of it. And that player is obviously Browning. Burrow's injured. He's going to be out for the next 3 months with his toe surgery.
If not
more. And I mean, if the Bengals aren't a playoff team after 3 months, Burrow's going to be shut down for the season. You could have Browning for the entire season, who has already shown that he can put up borderline QB1 numbers in this offense. Mm-hmm. And you can buy him off your waiver wire. You can buy a borderline QB1 off your waiver wire, and that has value, whether you decide to use Browning for a playoff push or if you're trying to just buy him and sell him. So the few leagues where Browning is available on our waiver wire, those leagues I'm a pure punting team. My team is awful. I've acquired a bunch of draft picks. I dropped 100% of my fab budget on it. And because I view Browning as like, cool, I'm buying a early 2nd round plus pick with $100 fab. And for a rebuild team, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take that. I don't need to add players throughout the year to build a competing roster. I'm purely trying to find what players I can add to my team now that I can flip for draft picks. So I went through and looked at the trade database. I even looked at Browning trades from last year when the same exact situation happened. And we have Browning traded for a 2026 second, Browning traded for a 2027 second, Browning traded for a 2nd and a 3rd. And then we have Browning and a 2nd traded for a 1st, which is also a fun topic we can talk about with
it's nuts.
Using an asset to tier up your draft pick. So adding Browning plus a second to get up to that first round pick value where there's a much higher hit rate on players. You're almost guaranteed a guy that will be productive in your system by picking up a guy off the waiver wire. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. I just think we're in kind of a gold mine situation for a rebuild team this week for the waiver wire because there's so many quarterback injuries, and backup quarterbacks are the easiest to flip for draft picks. It's the easiest to sell a competing team on buying a QB because they're limited. There's only 32 starting QBs in the league. Every other position there's RB2s on teams that are productive. There's wide receiver 3s on teams that are productive. But there's only 32 quarterbacks that play each week. And out of 12 teams who are all starting 2, there's going to be teams that, with injuries, just don't even have a QB2 or might need assurance to their QB, because nothing's worse as a competing team when you're going into a playoff stretch and your quarterback gets injured in the most pivotal part of your season. So if I'm a Daniels owner and someone is holding Mariota going into the playoffs, I'll send a 3rd round pick for him just to have the assurance that I have a guy ready to go if anything happens during the playoffs.
Yeah, I obviously the disclaimer here is that this is for Superflex leagues where in a 12-team, 24 quarterbacks are likely being started. Obviously, when you have these rebuilding rosters, this is something that I do in the offseason, and obviously this is not something that you can do right now. A lot of backup quarterbacks end up being rostered, and in any leagues where I'm a rebuilder, I am rostering all of them. Instead of rostering a guy like Darius Slayton, who is just going to make my max points for go up in a league where I'm trying to get the 101, I'm going to roster Carson Wentz, who now is going to start for a few games and could be of value just like Jake Browning. And I think a lot of people would say, oh, there's no way anybody would trade a second for Browning. Tags just mentioned those trades, which are real trades, and we saw one go down in a league that we are in together.
And I'll
yesterday.
Also put them on the screen so people can see the actual trades that have happened and gone down, because especially since the same situation has happened before, we have the data that says this is what you should get for them, and here's what you can, and here's what everyone else is getting for them. So it's almost like with a lot of other quarterbacks, say Mariota, Wentz, you kind of have to have the right situation. This situation's perfect where you're guaranteed to get at minimum a 2nd round pick for him. And I'm gladly, as a rebuild team, I'm gladly spending all my fab if I can get a 2nd round pick, because that gives me either another shot at the dartboard trying to get a hit on a guy in the 2nd round, or that gives you ammunition in the rookie draft to be able to trade up. So if you have the 110, you might be able to throw in that 2nd on there to get up to the 106, get up to the next tier of rookie players. So finding those ways to be able to build your little war chest of assets on your dynasty team is so important. And this is what you should be doing as a rebuild team during the season. You can't check out. You need to be constantly looking for ways you can add value to your team.
Yeah, and if you're a rebuilder, don't just pick up Browning, Wentz, and Mariota. Throw $0 bids on all the backups that are on waivers, right? Like I said, don't be rostering Kendrick Bourne and Jalen Naylor, who aren't going to gain value to the point of being worth any sort of draft capital to anybody else, because they're not going to be startable. But who is startable is Carson Wentz in a Vikings offense that made Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins look good, right? So, if we see one game here this weekend for, the Vikings are playing the Bengals. Carson Wentz is going to have a good day. I mean, Kevin O'Connell sets up his quarterbacks for success. And like I just said, Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Carson Wentz, he should have a good day. and you will be able to sell him to a team who maybe just lost Burrow, or to a team that maybe has Trevor Lawrence in their QB2 slot right now, and they look at the production that Lawrence has put up versus what Wentz can, and they're like, oh, I can get a better quarterback for this week for a second, I'll do that. There are lots of ways to play around with this, but don't just pick up the guys who are going to be starting. Pick up any backup who could potentially be vaulted into a starting position, just like we've seen this week with Wentz and Browning.
Yeah, and who's going to gain more value throughout the season? Is it Ray McLeod, wide receiver 3
we can name him forever
on the Falcons, Darius Slayton, wide receiver 3 on the Giants, or Sam Howell if Jalen Hurts goes down for a week or two, which has happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's not abnormal when I look at my rebuild teams and I have 6-7 backup quarterbacks just sitting there, just waiting for their opportunity to sell. You're kind of
Tyrod Taylor might start this week.
Exactly. Like you're kind of just sitting on these guys and waiting for the moment to sell when their value spikes and then move on. And it's kind of funny because like you see the parallels to this strategy compared to like the Eagles in real life. The Eagles traded for Sam Howell. They traded for Kenny Pickett. They drafted Jalen Hurts when they already had Carson Wentz, when Carson Wentz was like a former MVP. You see them do this in real life because quarterback is the most valuable position in football, and it's the same in superflex leagues. It's going to be a much easier sell to get a second or third round pick out of a backup quarterback than it is when there's probably like 50, 60 valuable running backs. There's probably 100 valuable wide receivers that can be tossed into a lineup at any time throughout the season. It's a much more limited commodity. And at some point, there's going to be teams in your league that need them. And what I like to do also is targeting contending teams. It's all about knowing the state of your league, which I use Dynasty Daddy. You can put in your info there, pull up your leagues, and it can kind of give you a broad overview of the power rankings in your league, what teams are kind of strong at certain positions, weak at other positions, and just use that data to target free agents on the waiver wire. Because this contending team, if they only have Hurts and Brock Purdy as their quarterbacks, I'm 100% rostering Mac Jones and Sam Howell, because if either of those guys go down and it's close to that playoff window, I'm going to be able to get so much value for those two pieces from that contending team. So, and contending teams are so much more open to moving draft picks. Like trying to trade for a first round pick from a team that's middle of the pack is such a nightmare because it's so hard to value that pick. And usually those picks are overvalued. Whereas if it's a top 3 power team in your league, they'll gladly send off a second if it means they can have a backup to their quarterback in case they go down.
Yeah.
So I like to target all the contending teams in my leagues. I know kind of where I stand in the league and where everyone stands so that I can build out my waiver wire around them, because once it gets to playoff times, they're going to be the ones that are shopping for assets and trying to move those draft picks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just being armed with information, having that arsenal of information that you want in order to be the best dynasty manager that you can be, and to get the most value out of your season. And like you said at the top, so many rebuilding teams want to just go in, set their lineup every week, come back out. You don't want to look at it. You're not competing. You're not trying to score points. You're not trying to win games.
Because it is ugly to look at.
Absolutely, right? When
no one wants to look at their rebuilding lineup. It's gross.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you have to be throwing, you're throwing Colston Loveland in the tight end slot right now when he's goose egging and things like that. But it's so important to maximize these windows of value, because you're going to be so happy come rookie draft when you have 2 extra seconds and an extra third to play around with, to try and move up, to try and get the most value you can.
Yeah.
Those are picks that you can literally right now, this week, turn fab into those picks.
Yeah, it feels and if you're asking like if someone sent you a trade offer, it's like, hey, I'll send you my second round pick for $100 fab. I'd be like, sick, good deal. see you at rookie draft.
Yeah, exactly. So easily. This is just another way to go about you're getting to the same place. You're just taking a different route.
Yeah. So all we're saying is, if you're a rebuild team, just be active.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of opportunities throughout the season to acquire more value. And the key to having a successful rebuild, getting out of that punting team and turning it around into a competing team, is maximizing any opportunity to gain value on your team. It's all about having as many as many dart throws at the board as you can to hit on as many players as you can, and also having the flexibility to be able to move around your draft picks, move around your rookie board by having those extra seconds and thirds that you literally just picked up for free on the waiver wire. So having that available to you and having that maneuverability to move up or down in the draft, and have extra shots at hitting on some mid-round players is just so vital to turning around a rebuild team.
Absolutely. Now, before we get out of here, we wanted to do a little real trade talk. So we want to talk about some deals that may have gone down or maybe happening in leagues that we are in. We figured some people might enjoy hearing this. Tags, I know that you have a negotiation that's sort of going on right now. Why don't you...
It's not so much a negotiation as I just got completely shut down. And
happens.
It's surprising because, I kind of want to talk about Rome Odunze. This guy, he's I feel like at this point has kind of established himself as the alpha wide receiver in Chicago. Had a huge game against the Lions, who are a pretty solid defense. Had a great game last week as well. And I sent out a trade this morning in a team that I'm competing. I'm a competing team in this league. It's actually a league that Sammy is also in with me, so I can't say what league it is.
Oh boy.
But I sent out an offer of AJ Brown straight up for Rome Odunze. And man, that trade got shot down so fast. And the other team is also a competing team. So I thought it was surprising. AJ Brown's had a rough last 2 weeks, but I thought it was surprising that Odunze's value has seemingly leapfrogged AJ Brown's value within 2 weeks. And I think, and I'm debating sending an offer back where it's like AJ Brown plus a second, AJ Brown plus another productive player, adding a plus to the AJ Brown side, because it may, in my head, it's an overpay. But if Rome Odunze keeps being productive the next few weeks, then we could view this in a week or two as a cheap buy. If I send AJ Brown in a second for Odunze, I could see a world where we look back at this in 2 weeks, two or 3 weeks, and be like, dang, that was a discount on him. And Odunze was my third favorite wide receiver in that class. It was obviously a stacked wide receiver class, but I kind of had him as like a 1B to Neighbors. There wasn't a teardrop there. It was kind of a pick your flavor. I liked Neighbors because the situation was better and there's less competition for targets. But talent-wise, coming out of the draft, I felt like Neighbors and Odunze were just kind of like neck and neck. There was a 1A and a 1B situation. So he has the draft profile I loved. The situation is getting better in Chicago. I think we're seeing more creative play calling. Caleb's taking a step up. And I think he's kind of established himself as the wide receiver 1 there. So I just thought it was interesting about that he seemingly leapfrogged AJ Brown already in value.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. Coming into the year, a lot of people worried about Odunze. A lot of other people were saying it's going to be JSN again. Obviously, that's really rare for such an awful rookie season to be followed up by a great sophomore year, especially for a top 10 pick. So I understood a lot of the fear. I'm not invested at all in Rome, really. And I think now somebody who did hold him sees that huge 2 touchdown performance that he put up in week 2, and they're just like, there's no way I waited for this, and I'm going to give it up for an aging receiver on a run first offense.
Yeah, I
Right?
think we're seeing some vindication from Odunze owners where it's like we've been holding so long that now that we're seeing him be productive, we're like, we told you.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
knew he could do this.
And those are the hardest guys to trade for. It's the same as the people who held on to JSN. I bet there was very little JSN movement in leagues this offseason.
Yeah.
Because the teams that held him after the disastrous rookie season felt so vindicated that they're just overvaluing him like crazy.
Also,
and so
it also feels good to hit on a player that you like planted your flag on.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's like I have so many Puka shares because I bought Puka everywhere. And famously, we had a trade in one of our leagues. There's a person in a league who, if he's listening to this, you might want to mute us for a bit. Puka was taken at the 311 in that draft, and I was bummed. It was one of the only few leagues where I didn't get Puka in, and I sent him on the spot during the draft a trade offer for a future second for Puka. And he was like, is this real? Like, is this actually like happening? And I'm just like, yep, that's my guy. I'm planting my flag on him. And sometimes it just feels so good to hit on those players that like you had thought they were going to be productive, took them 2 years to get to that production profile you want. And it's hard to move off those players once you gain that sentimental attachment to being like, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that you're going to have to send quite the pretty plus with AJ Brown to get that Odunze deal done.
Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe we'll do a follow-up next week and see if I can get the deal done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have a trade you wanted to highlight?
I did have a negotiation going on before this past weekend. And this was a league where I'm a competing team, and Trevor Lawrence is my quarterback too. And after the huge week that Justin Fields had against the Steelers, I was like, this could be a good situation to buy in. And it ended up that we were talking about Jameson Williams on my side, moving him for Justin Fields. And I was trying to get a little bit of a plus. I think the last deal that we looked at was I was getting Justin Fields and a second and Tank Bigsby because I have Saquon. I asked for that little tiny bit more for Jameson in a third, and the manager said no. And they said that they were going to... He did this thing where he was like, I'm going to entertain some other... I'm having some other discussions, so I'm going to let those people get back to me. He doesn't have any other offers. Anytime you hear that, they're lying to you, okay? I promise.
There's a bidding war, I swear.
Yeah, no, there is no bidding war. So I was just like, okay, fine. I was like, Trevor Lawrence has a good matchup against the Bengals. I'll chill for this week. Obviously, Fields falls on his face. So I think that this week, I might be able to go in there. Maybe get rid of the third on my side, add another second. Because I still believe in Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And this guy's just going to be shocked that I'm still possibly interested in this. So yeah, I'm going to see what I can do with that. I think it's an interesting one, trading that like young, promising wide receiver in Jameson Williams for a quarterback who potentially isn't very good. But those are the type of deals that I find win championships, right? Like if I get a 35 bomb from Justin Fields in the fantasy playoffs, that's going to be a hell of a lot more valuable to me than holding on to Jameson Williams, hoping that he becomes a more consistent producer, right?
Yeah. small leagues, but man, in my normal leagues, I have such a hard time consistently starting him.
He's frustrating.
And also, we've seen all the Tesla catches. That's a little concerning to me.
He's coming for sure.
Dude, he's a monster.
Yeah. But I think that is all we have for you guys today.
Yeah. Go get Brownie.
Really appreciate yeah, exactly. Really appreciate everybody coming back and listening to our third episode here. We're gonna keep it going. We'll be here every week.
Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button.
Hit the subscribe.
We need to get better at doing the YouTubers.
Yes, exactly.
The spiels before and after our podcasts.
Yes, absolutely. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you're liking what you're listening to. I am also doing, if you're following the Flock League at all, I am doing a weekly video on the Sammy Stacks YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description, obviously. Check that out. We really appreciate you, and we will see you next week.
Have a good one.